Hello, this is Freethought Forum, a program by the Atheist Society of Knoxville and the Rationalists of East Tennessee. I am Rachel Sheldon.
And I'm Maurice Severson, and we want you to know that if you don't believe in God, you are not alone. Right here in East Tennessee, you can find free-thinking atheists and agnostics. This is a show for them and people curious about living a life free of supernatural beliefs.
This is a call-in show. However, we have only one phone line. So if you can't get through, we invite you to tweet us. Send your tweets to @FFTVKnox.
The Rationalists of East Tennessee monthly activities on the first and third Sunday mornings are usually lectures with lively roundtable discussions, and the second Sunday is a book club. The fourth Sunday is a reflections gathering, which is a potluck afternoon gathering at a member's home.
The Atheist Society of Knoxville is a fun meetup, often at a bar or restaurant. Tonight's meetup at Barley's for happy hour tonight, after the show for food, drink, and conversation. And Friday we will meet for happy hour at the Field House atop Bearden Hill. To find us at either of these places, just look for the silver jacketed copy of the God Delusion standing upright on the table.
Today is November 13th, and we'll be talking about the oppression of women by religion. But first, in the news.
Our first, I think, you know, this huge worldwide phenomenon is about the innocence of Muslims filmmaker Mark Basili Yusuf, who will spend a year in jail for violating his probation. He's the man who made this, who conned pretty much these actors into appearing in a video, but then he went over and dubbed it so that it made the Prophet Muhammad look like a pedophile, a rapist, and, a thug. I mean, you could argue for any of those. However, he's violated probation because he was in jail before for bank and credit card fraud.
Yeah, he was the one that instigated all these riots that led to such horrible bloodshed.
Like in Benghazi, in Libya, and but he admitted to 4 violations, including lying to his probation officers and using bogus names. Prosecutors dropped 4 other counts, including lying to federal authorities about his role in the film. And Yusuf's attorney claims he was arrested for exercising free speech, but obviously, you need to choose what free speech you use when you're talking to your, probation officer.
Yes. Slightly higher standard.
And so, it's, I don't know, there's a lot of people that claim, that they're arrested for exercising free speech, but, I think it's sort of a go-to thing for, pretty much anybody trying to get out of stuff like that.
Weasel out.
Yeah, and obviously he's a weasel. I mean, he caused $800,000 in losses to people, and by, doing bank and credit card fraud and having 3, false names. And so he was a flight risk, so now he's going to jail.
Good. Very good. The election last week, obviously, some of the things actually tie in pretty well with our topic. Several senators who had suggested that rape was either somehow legitimate or not legitimate were defeated. One of them who had said that women should not be allowed to have access to an abortion because the rape was part of God's plan. Obviously, that's a great example of religion being abusive to women, in particular women, but in general abusive. Same thing with the horrible hurricane that went through. Again, people have said it's because this particular state was being punished for their, lack of faith or their support of certain agendas that disagree with their religious viewpoints. So.
Yeah, and also there's a record number of women in Congress, including the first bisexual, several more openly gay and lesbian senators, and also the first Hindu has been sworn into Congress. She was sworn in on the Bhagavad Gita, which is a Hindu holy book.
And also, gay marriage was passed in 3 more states. Again, the religious right had fought very hard against this, arguing that somehow allowing other people to marry somehow can hurt your own marriage. I don't understand how that's possible.
Yeah.
But that's their argument sometimes. Our kind of main thought here is religion abusive, and especially to women, but
yeah, but to everyone in general.
Yeah, everyone in general, a lot of the
Because if
things.
women are being hurt, you can't just hurt half the population and the other half be unscathed.
Yeah, especially the half that, does the majority of your child rearing and things like that, even in societies where there's a lot more women working. So the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services lists certain signs of abuse. One of them is monitors what you're doing all the time. And we have a caller. This is a call-in show. Hello, caller. You're on the air with us. Could we get a name or a nickname for you?
My name is Billy, and I like kittens.
All right. If you have a serious question or comment, please feel free to call in. So it's monitoring what you do all the time, and there's a lot of evidence within the Bible. Evidence that God is watching you all the time. Proverbs, the eyes of the Lord are in every place. So that's obviously that fits for everyone, male or female.
And stuff like thought crime, what you think is a sin, even if you can't really control it.
Yeah, I believe the doctrine in the Catholic faith has always been sin in thought, word, and deed.
Well, and even Jesus said, if you lust after a woman in your heart, then it's adultery too.
And for those of you who are old enough to remember Jimmy Carter saying that, apparently it applies to the Southern Baptists as well, because that's what he was. So the second thing is prevents or discourages you from seeing your friends or family. Matthew, a little New Testament here, 10:35. I have come to set a man against his father, a daughter against her mother. A man's enemies will be those of his own household. He that loves father or mother more than me is not worthy. So
and of course, there's lots of abusive spouses or boyfriends who are you need to spend time with me. You can't be around anybody else. You need to be around me. And they try to cut out everybody from that person.
They cut out all your support. And it's the same thing. If you're a Christian, you're not supposed to spend time among people who are not Christians.
And of course, there's, extreme cases like the Jehovah's Witnesses or the Mormons. If you have a family member that leaves, you're not allowed to talk to them again because you might catch their sin.
Yeah, shunning the Amish as well.
And even if you didn't leave their church, if your family member joins Jehovah's Witnesses or Mormons and you're not one, they can't spend time around you.
Yeah. It prevents you from going to work or school. And this is obviously a lot more geared against women. Let the women keep silent in the churches, for they are not permitted to speak. If they want to learn something, let them ask their own husbands at home. And, this is not only in the Christian faith, but in the Muslim faith. Several of their universities have just forbidden women from attending. A lot of segregation and discouraging women from being educated or holding jobs. That somehow it's damaging to
society.
Society, to the family. Or that women are only useful if they are raising children.
And like I saw, like in even, you know, in the United States and before women got the vote, you know, they had that same, you know, women shouldn't be allowed to vote. They think with their emotions. Their husband should be the one who go do this.
Unfortunately, there's I believe she's a state senator who is a Republican recently who said basically the same thing just a couple of weeks ago. So again, it's an idea that's still very pervasive.
Yeah.
And frightening. So, but an abusive person controls how you spend your money. Obviously, there's a lot of discussion in the Bible about tithing and in the, you know, Jesus of giving away all of your possessions, and it's actually included with a threat in Acts. I think, yeah, Acts 5. They explain that you're supposed to sell all your household goods and follow the Lord. And a woman and her husband, they do sell their land and their house, but they keep a portion back for themselves, and they're both immediately struck dead. So that's pretty much of a threat. That's abuse. I mean, that's emotional abuse when you are threatened. Obviously, these people were actually killed.
And I mean, and it was, you know, one thing. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of churches. Like, I mean, if you go look at the Vatican, you see what's being done with all this money that all these people gave it. When you know, way back then, you know, the money was actually used for good instead of, you know, building these giant temples and stuff. And it's like, do you really think that, you know, that's really a good use of your money?
Yeah, a lot of people use that as an example.
Okay. Hello, caller. Can we have a name or nickname?
My name's Jack.
Hi, Jack.
How are you today?
Good.
We're good. How are you?
I'm okay. I heard that the show today is about, is religion detrimental?
Yes.
Yeah.
If I could just take a moment, I'm a very short story. I have a business that I had a partner with, and we didn't discuss religion, and I knew he was a very religious person, so I kind of stayed up the background. One day he came up, and I just kind of told him what I really thought about it. It actually broke up the partnership of the business, which was very stressful on both of the families.
Oh, definitely.
And talked quite about him the other day and started talking religion again. And I started talking to him about, you know, stoning homosexuals, and he said that should be stoned. The government should round people up who have been involved in homosexual activities, and they should be executed by the government.
Yeah, Uganda is actually talking about instituting that, and some of the Christian leaders here had gone over to advise them, and now they're claiming, well, we didn't know that's what they were going to do.
Well, and I asked him about blasphemers too, you know, and he agreed blasphemers should be rounded up and executed by the government. You know, not people do it on their own, but you know, government should take control of it and execute people. And I guess for years, kind of looked at religion, you know, even back, especially back before 9/11, like it was just kind of just a lame, you know, whether they believed or didn't believe, it wasn't hurting anything.
Right.
And then when you see these kind of things and talk to people like that, I think you really need to, if somebody's religious and you talk to them, you really need to see how deep that virus goes inside them, and could they possibly be a dangerous person because of it? And I was just absolutely flabbergasted.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you put it... we have a question from the audience. Have you watched the show before, and how did you find out about it?
Oh, how did I find out about it? From online.
Oh, cool.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I've watched guys in the AIDS experience and all the other ones that are on, and watched a lot of it. You know, it's just kind of, you want to listen to people who have a similar view to you.
Oh yeah, definitely. And you know, and like I've heard before, you know, trying to, you know, round together atheists is sort of like herding cats. And
yeah, it's especially difficult when you're such a minority in an area. It's nice to know that people are out there close by and not just, you know, and millions of miles away, it feels like sometimes.
Yeah, and like being in the Bible Belt is, it can be hard.
Well, I just wanted to compliment y'all what y'all are doing to get out there in the public and get the word out. And I wanted to tell you a little story that I just went through. It was very detrimental to the business and to the employees, and somebody was a little hard on everybody. But then to think that there's people out there and right here in Knoxville that believe that really believe. I mean, wrap up homosexuals and blasphemers and execute them. And that's what our government should be doing.
Yeah.
And what's really
it's
odd
frightening.
and what's really odd is a lot of people actually that think that they're like, oh, we're for small government, except when it benefits our religion.
Yeah.
And
yeah. Well, we appreciate you calling in. Thanks.
Right.
And
Y'all going to bar tonight?
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Are
I
you
was gonna
local?
say if you're local, anybody who's interested, not just atheists, but if you're
not going to hurt us.
yeah, as long as you're not there to punch or proselytize or preach.
Or
Everybody
provoke.
is welcome if you want to come see an atheist up close and see that we don't bite. So.
I won't bring him with me. Everything will.
Okay, there you go. Thanks.
Okay.
Good night.
Bye.
But it's not just detrimental to the people around.
Yeah.
It's detrimental to you, like these self-immolating Tibetan Buddhists.
Yeah.
And it's not just monks or anything that's doing it. It's like teenagers. You're only hurting yourself and your families.
Yeah.
And and of course there's these, Buddhists that are saying that, it's your sacred duty to support this because you're a Buddhist. And it's, but you see stuff like that in Christianity. Well, if you're a Christian, you have to support this thing that, normally a sane person wouldn't be for.
Yeah. Rounding up people and killing them, for example.
Yeah, when, of course, I'm a young person growing up. I watched a lot of friends have a lot of problems coming out as gay to their families. I've had friends that they've been cut off from their families, never wanted to talk to them again. And it's not a nice thing to do. It's very difficult for somebody to get the courage to do that. And to think that somebody would, want to go through all that trouble is just ridiculous.
Yeah. But that's one of the ways that religion is abusive. It's selects out certain groups of people and says that, and of course Christians will say, well, we don't hate the sinner, we hate the sin. But it's very difficult
when it's an aspect of your personality.
Yeah,
when it's in
and
your
more
DNA.
scientific evidence comes through every day that there's no way that this is a choice. There's evidence that your brain reacts differently.
It's your hormone levels. It's the size of different glands in your brain.
It's the conditions that were present when you were gestated by your pregnant mother. There's different and it shows up in a scientific viewpoint. But of course, if you're going by a book that is thousands of years old where science was unknown, that really doesn't hold much weight.
And something else I read about is, when you're, back then, in this culture where these people lived in tents in the desert, there wasn't, people didn't come out and say, I'm homosexual. There were people that were having homosexual relationships.
Right.
But they didn't just come out and say, no, I'm not getting married. I mean, you really didn't have a choice in it. But these relationships did happen. That's why, there isn't really that much of it.
Yeah. They were all on the down low back then. So, but that's another thing, the lack of respect for science. Oh, and we have another caller. Thank you for calling. Could we have a nickname or a name?
Charlotte.
Charlotte?
Hi,
Good.
Charlotte.
How you doing today?
Just fine.
And did you have a comment or question?
Yes, I wanted to know, I was watching the show, how does an atheist believe that we humans evolved?
How do we believe that we evolved?
Yes, I mean, if there, if you don't believe in that there's a higher power, I mean, how did people become? How was people made?
By trial and error, basically.
Yeah, we believe in most atheists, obviously not. We can't speak for all atheists, but both Rachel and I definitely believe in Darwin's theory of evolution. The idea is that we know from the fossil record, from the evidence, that
from
there
our
were
DNA.
From our DNA, from our embryology, that there was a time on this planet where there was no human life. We look at the evidence and say, well, if there's a time when there were dinosaurs and there are no dinosaurs now, and there's a time when there were no humans and now there are humans, and there are numerous species in between, and you can show...
And where there are these ape-like creatures that look like humans, and from that fossil record, there aren't any humans, just these sort of ape-like creatures.
Yeah, the Australopithecus and
Homo
the
erectus.
Yeah, and the Neanderthals and those things, and of course those things directly contradict the biblical version of events, which is that everyone was here that is here now at the beginning, and that just doesn't fit the facts. That's one of the things, and I have Christian friends who don't believe in a strict interpretation of Genesis and things like that.
Where they believe that God directed evolution.
Yeah, God uses evolution as one of his tools, but to me it's a pretty good point of saying, you know, if you're going to say that this part of a book is not true, then why should I believe that any of it is true? So does that answer your question?
Well,
I guess so. Thank you for calling.
I mean, like, if you have a question, I mean, we're willing to answer it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, there's people that don't know how to go about doing that.
Yes. But again, the lack of respect for science, one of the things in the abusive thing is controls your use of needed medicine. And of course, a lot of churches are...
The Christian Science, people that don't have any medication.
Yeah, they go by the Bible that says, like James 3:15, and the prayer of faith will save the sick. Pray for one another that you may be healed. The effective, fervent prayer of a righteous man avails much. And there are people who deprive their children of medical care,
there are
themselves. Obviously,
yeah.
if you know, I believe that you have a right to control your own self.
Your own body.
Yeah, if you don't want to take medicine when you're sick, that's your choice. If you say it's your religious belief, that's also your choice. But to deprive your children of medical care that can save their lives
in treatment,
I think is wrong.
And a lot of this is, you know, treatable. Like, there's stuff, there have been diabetic children. You know, all you need is, you know, check your blood, take your insulin, eat okay, you're healthy. These people don't do that for their kids, and their kids die an entirely preventable death when they could have had a long, quiet, normal life. And, you know, and there's even extreme cases, like in South America, abortion and birth control, and even prophylactics, they're hard to find. There have been cases where you can't get birth control because the state controls it. There is this 17, 18-year-old girl. They discovered she had an acute form of cancer. It was going to kill her very quickly unless they had something done now. She was pregnant. They found out she was pregnant. And they withheld the chemo from her because she was pregnant, because it might kill the baby. And by the time they said, okay, you can take the chemo or have an abortion and take the chemo, she was dead.
Yeah.
And, you know, and to me, this doesn't seem like a pro-life issue. It's a pro-birth issue. Obviously, if the mother dies, the baby dies too. I mean, which is, you know, even more heartbreaking.
Yeah, and unnecessary, completely unnecessary. decides things for you that you should be allowed to decide for yourself, like what to wear or eat. And of course, Leviticus has a very long list of what in this case Jews, of what is clean or unclean to eat,
or wear.
Or wear. Then in Corinthians, it's every woman who prays with her head uncovered dishonors her head. If a woman has long hair, it is a glory to her. Her hair is given to her as a covering. So it's what you should wear and how you should dress,
how you should style your hair.
Yeah, women should adorn themselves in modest apparel with propriety, not with braided hair or gold or pearls or costly clothing. And that's Timothy. So yeah, there's all kinds of rules
and
about stuff that it's like, really, this matters? I'm gonna get into heaven or not based on my earrings? It doesn't really. It seems a little trivial to us, I guess.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think in Timothy it also says that you can only have long hair if you cover it. If you're not going to cover it, keep it shaved.
Yeah, and of course in Islam, the presence of the burqas and women are not supposed to be seen by anyone, or in Orthodox Judaism, where even rabbis of certain sects are not supposed to be touched by any female who is not either their wife or like their own daughter. Because women are unclean. There's also a big point of how unclean a woman is after having a child, that if she has a female child, she's unclean for twice as long as if she had a male child. Even Mary, the mother of God, was considered unclean and was isolated and had to go through this purification process. And it's like, okay, but at least she only had to go through it half as long because it was a boy instead of a girl.
And yeah, but it implies, that boys are so much better.
Yeah, exactly.
Just because they have a Y chromosome.
Yep. Of course, they didn't know about a Y chromosome, but
yeah,
but
now
they just knew that they had a penis and a foreskin to send to God, and that was what made them special. So.
And even like Orthodox Jews, the women can't wear the color red because the men believe that it is too provocative.
Yeah. A lot of the Bible is filled with the idea of men just running rampant. Men cannot be trusted if women are around, because women are just way too, tempting at all points.
Well, but that's still around a lot in Islam too. If you've read Infidel by Ayaan Hirsi Ali, she talked about how life in, where she lived, it changed so much when when radical Islam became popular. It went from women wearing traditional garb to women, hiding everything except the moon of their face or their eyes and stuff like that, and how this young man, she knew, he was like, I was less lustful. I was driven less crazy when I saw more.
Yeah, exactly. You want to do the program, babe?
Okay, and
we're kind of coming up on our halfway point here.
And so we're going to do our mid-program break, and we're going to show a video.
Yeah. I think it's on the second page, though.
Okay. Do you find stories of
in case you're just tuning in, this is the Freethought
scientific method over supernatural beliefs? Are you concerned about religious leaders and organizations imposing their values and rules on your body, your family, and the rest of our society? Well, take comfort in the fact that you're not alone. The Rationalists of East Tennessee meets weekly for fellowship and provides a forum for people who support skeptical thinking and rational discussion of these and other issues. To find out more information or to find out about our next meeting, visit us on the web at www.rationalist.org.
In case you're just tuning in, this is Freethought Forum.
If you live in or around the Knoxville area and are questioning your religious beliefs or simply believe in one less God than everyone else, well, you're not alone. The Atheist Society of Knoxville is a fun and friendly group of people just like you that meets twice a week at a bar or restaurant. We meet every Tuesday night following the show at Barley's Tap Room and Pizzeria for happy hour. You'll find our group either inside or on the patio. Look for Richard Dawkins' silver-jacketed book, The God Delusion, standing upright on the table. On Fridays, we meet at Agave Azul or the Beard and Beer Market. But if you plan to preach, proselytize, provoke, or punch, please don't. We all question what we believe at one point in our lives. If this is the time for you, come join us for food, drink, conversation, and fun.
They always have big smiles in them.
In case you're just tuning in, this is Freethought Forum, a program by the Atheist Society of Knoxville and the Rationalists of East Tennessee. Freethought Forum is funded jointly by them and by individual contributions. Shows are live most every Tuesday from 5 to 6 p.m. Eastern on Community Access Television. You can also see it streaming online at ctvknox.org.
This is a call-in show, and we are live today. And viewers can call in now to the number on the screen or tweet them to us at FFTVKnox.
And back to our topic.
Yeah, our topic is religion abusive, especially to women? And we're going through some of the points that the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services has a checklist of how to tell if your relationship is abusive. We've gotten to the really kind of frightening parts. Forces you to have sex against your will. Judges, there's some really horrifying stories in the Bible about
the entire female population of a city. If they weren't virgins, they were killed, along with all the men in the city.
And the virgins were considered the spoils of war.
But there was this one case, and this was in a, Jewish city, and they're like, we need all these women. We're going to put them in this place, and whoever catches them gets to keep them as a wife.
Yeah, one of the stories in Judges is a man is visiting, and the person whose home he comes to, this guy takes him in with his concubine as a guest, and the men of the town are immoral and they want to have sex with the man who's the guest. And so instead of allowing that, the householder rushes to his defense and instead offers him his virgin daughters and actually throws the man's concubine out, where she is raped all night and manages to crawl back to the doorstep just before dawn and then dies. And there's no mention of this being a bad thing at all, except that then the man uses her body as a message to talk about how Israel has been insulted. He cuts her up and sends pieces of her to the other tribes to call them together to say that this is a terrible thing that has happened to this man.
Never mind the concubine.
Yeah, she's of no consequence whatsoever.
He slept all through it, but he's...
Yeah, they basically, shoved her out the door, and, he walks up to her and says, get up, basically, and let's go, and she doesn't, and that's when he realizes she's dead. But this is very, common all through the Bible. 1 Corinthians, the wife does not have authority over her own body, but the husband does. And it continues on talking about, that sex is not necessarily something that he would do. But if you're going to, then you have to be married, and that's the purpose of marriage, is to keep these carnal impulses. And so he says, do not deprive one another, except for like short periods of prayer and fasting. And up until 1993, not 1893, marital rape was still legal in several states. That was the year it finally passed.
It wasn't considered a crime.
Yeah, she's your wife. Why?
You can
because
do what you want to.
Yeah, the Bible says so, that you can't rape your wife. She is your property, and that was a lot of it. And I believe that the last places to get rid of it were in the Bible Belt. And that was a lot of the idea behind it. And it's still not treated the same as other forms of rape. The punishments for marital rape are much lesser. For example, some states it's 2 to 10 years versus 10 to 35 years in prison terms, there's a shorter reporting period, whereas if you were raped, you have, 3 to 5 years, depending on each state, of course, to report it. You may only have, a month to 3 months to report it if it's your husband that does it.
And what's really bad is the vast majority of rapists are, they know who their victim is. They know them, their friends, their relatives. And so, that's a huge chunk of, these people.
Yeah, and a lot of that is this idea that, and the whole idea that a woman is supposed to submit to her husband. The husband is the head of the wife. It all comes back to Eve and this idea that, oh, well, women are not worthy because Eve was deceived by the serpent. And
one woman's evil, therefore all women.
Yeah, basically, that we all have to be punished, and that we're all inherently bad and evil and weak, and we need men to make our decisions for us. And if you are brought up in faith that says that, I don't understand how you could not feel like, oh, well, this is just my lot in life. I think it's a terrible thing to tell women as girls and as women that we are, unworthy.
Oh, yeah, and then there's, that wonderful law where the rapist has to marry the victim. Yeah,
there's a lot of cases in that if you can prove that you actually were raped, because if you had sex but you weren't actually raped, in other words, there were no witnesses, and you didn't cry out in the town, you were both put to death, because obviously the fact that you were raped is your fault. And that sounds barbaric, and people think, oh, well, yeah, but that's not the parts of the Bible. Well, you've got to understand that there are countries where this is happening today, where there are honor killings.
There's Morocco, there's Afghanistan.
Women are killed every day for the fact that they have been raped by someone.
And there have been cases. There was this one case, I believe, in Morocco. This girl was being forced to marry her rapist, and she killed herself.
Yeah.
Because she'd rather die than be forced to live with this, man who, hurt her.
Yeah. Yeah. I can say I totally sympathize with her. Controls your birth control, obviously. Most of the people against birth control cite their religious background, their religious beliefs, be fruitful and multiply. Psalm 127:3, behold, children are a heritage from the Lord.
We have a call.
Okay, we have a caller. Cool.
Hello, caller. Can we have a name or nickname? Caller?
Caller, you're on the air.
Hi, I just wanted to say thank you both for sharing a different viewpoint.
Well, thank you.
That's what we're here for.
All right, I'm watching you now, so I just wanted to say that. Thank you very much.
Oh, okay.
Bye.
Well, thanks.
Bye-bye.
That was quick. Children are a heritage from the Lord. The fruit of the womb is a reward. And Timothy, nevertheless, she will be saved in childbearing. That's supposedly the redemption for woman falling from grace and being punished because of what Eve did. Generally, I think most of the atheists I know just don't believe that other people should be punished for, I shouldn't be punished for what someone else does. And certainly someone I've never met, is supposedly even thousands of years removed. I don't think that makes sense. But yeah, the issues of birth control and rape.
Oh yeah, and also, as our audience showed us, rapists can sue for visitation and custody rights, and they also use that to control the victim.
Yeah.
Like, well, if you report me, I'm going to sue for custody of our child.
Yeah, these are actually, you know, when this whole idea of there's legitimate rape and non-legitimate rape, supposedly. People who are serving time in prison for raping a woman they have never met can still sue for custody rights in, like, I think it's 30 states. Because this idea that, you know, your children are such an inherent right, and it's like, I just don't agree that rapists have that much to, you know, do to benefit a child.
Yeah, what's this?
Crazy me.
What's this person going to teach their kid how to do?
Yeah,
how are they
exactly.
going to treat that kid? I mean, there's enough bad parents that aren't rapists.
Yeah, you know, without trying to get these people into the group, you know. But yeah, and the last check of whether a relationship is abusive is hurts you or humiliates you or threatens your children. It's very clear that women are a possession. When they're going through the commandments in Exodus, the one about coveting your neighbor's wife actually reads from the Gideon version of the Bible, which is the one I used because they're easier to come by. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, nor his male servant, nor his female servant, nor his ox, nor his donkey, nor anything that is your neighbor's. Women are a possession, just like
up there with slaves.
Yeah, slaves and animals, and, you know, his big screen TV, I suppose, if you were extrapolating into our time. And this has been used throughout history to justify women being deprived of rights. In our own country, up until fairly recently, it was fairly common practice that if a woman married everything that was legally hers, whether she had inherited it or earned it in some way, or bought it herself, automatically became her husband's. And it was his, you know, and that was one of the justifications. Well, you know, but a woman is a man's possession, as evidenced by the Word of God. And so I think that it sets women up to accept abuse from not only a pastoral thing, which obviously we know a lot of children are abused,
everybody.
but from anybody who's male, basically. It's, you're not worthy. And yeah, that obviously not every, you know, pastor or clergyman is going to take advantage.
But there are plenty that do.
Yeah, but it's like any profession that has power. People who are going to abuse that power are going to be drawn to it. Jim Jones in Guyana, you know.
Where he, you know, if the people that didn't commit suicide, he forced them. He
and of course all the
themselves.
children and you know, the Waco disaster and things like that that again are still going on today in the name of God and the name of Allah and the name of Yahweh, and Jewish women being oppressed.
Or Hindu women where the widows were expected to throw themselves onto the funeral pyre.
Yeah, committing sati, because otherwise you're dishonoring your family, and now we've got honor killings where, and if you don't, you know, kill yourself, well, then that's okay. Your family will kill you instead. You know, it's like, great.
And, you know, in cases where there's a lot of immigration, you know, where there have been many honor killings, there have been in Canada, in England, in the United States, and it's still going on. And there have been cases where these young women have come to the police saying, my family's going to kill me. And they're like, no, you're hysterical. That would never happen.
Yeah.
And then these girls go missing.
Yeah. And they're never heard from again. But yeah, and sometimes the families are proud of it. They point out that they've done it.
Like, I believe it was this father who was recently in the news because he killed his daughters. And he's like, yeah, I did it. What are you gonna do about it?
Yeah.
But he was complaining, that she was westernized. And it's like, if you live in the United States or Canada, of course they're going to be in the westernized. You live in the West.
Yeah. Hopefully they're westernized. But again, the Bible says very much the same things. It's not just, because I think it's easy to say,
Oh. Never mind.
do we have a call? Okay, all right. I thought we did, but then we didn't. It's easy to say, oh, well, yes, but those people's beliefs are very different. And of course, all three of those religions are based on the same tradition, the Jews, the Christians, and the Muslims. Mm-hmm. And Proverbs, as a ring of gold in a swine's snout, so is a lovely woman who lacks discretion. It's like, wow, okay.
It means keep your mouth shut.
Yeah, women are admonished to stay silent and to defer to male opinion and male thought and male learning over and over and over again. And if they don't, the examples of women who don't are usually these horrible women who,
stories.
Yeah,
there's like Jezebel.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, after her husband died, she stayed queen, and look what happened to her. She fell out of a window and got eaten by dogs. Okay. Hello, caller. Can we have a name or nickname?
My name's Susan.
Hello, Susan.
Hello.
Do you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, I have a comment. Thank God I finally found somebody who knows it. Well, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That knows what people are talking about. But they push religion too much on people.
Yeah. We agree.
When you have to start paying people to say something good to you?
That's a very good point, yeah.
So, I mean, for real.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really hard to avoid stuff like that when you first meet somebody. One of the questions they usually ask is, "Where do you go to church?" And if, "Oh, you don't go to church, you have to come with me."
Yeah.
Oh, they can send you envelope after envelope. Oh, well, donate this,
Mm-hmm.
donate that.
Yep.
And those horrible prayer rug things that they send if you put this
Yeah,
under
send
your
you
pillow. Yeah.
this water that's being blessed over and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
If Jesus was standing there by myself, how so that he was blessed it?
Yeah.
Yeah, when I used the ladies' room today at the public library, there was a flyer talking about eternity and my place in it and my salvation and my damnation if I didn't pay attention and go to church and accept Jesus as my Savior.
Well, why can't you believe in what you want to believe in? And people start pushing religion on you.
Exactly. I mean,
Yeah, and that's the exact sort of thing that turns people off.
and that's exactly what this country was founded on, was, trying to escape religious persecution of
Exactly.
people trying to make it an official religion of the state.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my daughter actually got kicked out of church because she went to her prom.
Oh my gosh.
So that
Well, did she dance? Or was she wearing a...
Was she Baptist?
Yeah, was she doing something that they said she ought not to do, that everybody else does?
The prom.
Uh,
And that's just crazy.
it
Yeah,
is.
it is.
Instead of a church.
Yep.
But anyway, I appreciate y'all.
Okay, well, thank you for calling.
More than welcome.
Okay.
Y'all have a good day.
Okay.
You too.
And and anybody who's listening, if you're an atheist, if you want company, you can come to Ask or the Rationalists of East Tennessee.
Yeah, like I said, there's a lot of different activities that we do. You can find us online.
And we're meeting up at Barley's. Actually, it's going on right now.
Yeah, some of them are already there.
And after the show is over, we'll be there.
Yep. We'll head over after this, and it's just a interesting place. And like I said, lots of people come who are believers. They come to discuss theology. We come to discuss, what movies we like or what music we've heard lately.
Or what's on the news, or just, vent about what's going on.
Yeah. It's a really casual place to meet with people.
And it's got a family atmosphere.
Yeah, we've got people bring their kids.
There's alcohol served, but there's no pressure to drink.
Yeah.
And
it's good, wholesome fun.
It really is.
It really is. And the Rationalists of East Tennessee, they have a lot of different
if you like to read,
programs
or
and
if you
things
want to
like
go
that.
To a potluck.
But yeah, and I believe we actually have a picnic. But yeah, if you want to contact us online, the Ask website is up there, and RET, Rationalists of East Tennessee. That's how I found them. But yeah, we just don't understand basically why people would subject themselves to being humiliated and criticized and told that they are lacking and flawed. And
just because they're human.
Yeah, because they're human. In fact, this pamphlet that I got today is pointed out, well, until you admit that you are basically a miserable sinner, you can't possibly be saved. And it's like, well, if I'm such a horrible person, then why do I deserve to be saved, is kind of the way my thinking process goes. It's like...
And this whole thing of, yes, or you're okay until you reach an age where you know what right and wrong is, and then no matter who you are, what you've done, you're irreparable.
Yeah.
Except through this one thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and of course, there's not really a lot of agreement. I've had a person at work confront me about being an atheist, and I didn't get a chance to talk with him at length or anything, but I really wanted to point out, it's like, people see it as a choice between, well, either there is a God or there isn't a God. But there's a lot of people who believe in a lot of different gods, so what if your God is the wrong God?
Or there's even really, stuff like Confucianism, it's a philosophy and stuff. There is no God.
Yeah, there's religions that have no God.
Or like
if that
Buddhism.
Yeah, there's
their God's so great that he doesn't even exist.
And you too can become God in Buddhism.
Yes.
You can, go through the processes and achieve, enlightenment.
Or they claim reincarnation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, in Mormonism, where you get your own planet.
Yeah. I would like a planet. Who wouldn't want that? But to us, the problem is that when what you believe starts to impact on other people's lives, that's problematic. When you start killing people, or raping people, or saying that children need to be, beaten, or people need to be stoned to death, or because...
Or something that you don't even see, something that happens behind closed doors where nobody's getting hurt.
Yeah, to me that inherently is abusive, and so that's...
Or when you make people feel bad for expressing who they are.
Yeah, or just expressing themselves at all. Yes. Basically, just having an opinion. Again, women aren't supposed to have opinions because the Bible says that we're not supposed to. And obviously that didn't work with either of us, but...
But we're special.
We're special, exactly.
But I think what our last caller said, being able to not escape religion, there was this teacher who got fired for burning crucifixes onto students' arms with a Tesla coil. This happened in Ohio. Thankfully, it wasn't in Tennessee for once.
Because they actually fired him.
Yes, that's true. If it was in Tennessee, it wouldn't be fired.
Yeah.
But the teacher claims that it's an X, but I saw the pictures. It is, it's like that. It's pretty obvious. This happened in 2008. Crazily, this guy has taken his case to court several times, trying to get his job back. And this guy, and another good reason for thinking it's a cross, he'd been reprimanded multiple times for imposing his religious views on students. he had the 10 Commandments hanging in his science lab, in addition to other religious posters, and he refused to remove all the posters. He took them all down but one.
And of course, this is a public school. If this was a parochial school, I mean, except for the burning people part, although, you know, maybe in certain
Catholic
schools, I don't know. I have a friend who grew up going to Catholic schools and remembers the nuns with no fondness whatsoever. But yeah, I mean, the point is that this is a government institution of the United States.
And I don't know about, like, the public school where you grew up, but in my public high school, there was a Christian studies class. I mean, that's the place for it. If you're in science class, you're there to learn science. If you're in a Christian class, you're there to learn Christianity.
Yeah.
I think, you know, and if you want to teach your kids, you know, your religion, that's great. I mean, I think everybody should know, you know, about, you know, different religions and what they're really about. But these students, they have to take this class to graduate high school.
Yeah, and it's supposed to be a science class, which means
you know,
they're not learning science when they're busy.
What they're learning in this, or supposed to be learning in this biology class, it affects their entire careers. It affects how well they're going to do in college biology or chemistry classes. This is important. I mean, and if they don't do well in that class, then maybe they won't do well in college.
Yeah. And the beautiful thing is that he's suing, saying that he's violating
his academic freedom.
And his freedom of speech. And it's like, well, no.
and usually, you know, people like this, you know, they see themselves as martyrs.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, I'm proud I did this. But he kept several Bibles and stuff like that in the roll. But then when an investor came, he hid them all.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's like, if you're going to be proud to be doing it, then show that you're doing it.
Yeah, don't hide when the cops show up.
and of course, you know, like somebody, he was the monitor for FCA, you know, for Christian students. Mm-hmm. However, in clubs for kids like that, the kids have to do everything, whether it's French club or FCA. But he was interfering, he was leading the prayers, he was telling the kids what to do, which is against the rules.
Yeah.
And he'd even pass out creationist materials to the kids. You know, actual, you know, pamphlets, you know, and but then he'd hide it by asking all the students to give them back to him.
Don't take this home to your parents. It's bad stuff.
But I think, you know, a good test to see if, you know, this is something that a public official should or shouldn't be doing. It's, you know, what I read somewhere called the Muslim test. Would you be okay if a student was given a Muslim tract by a teacher? Would you be okay if it was a Jehovah's Witness, you know, doing this to your kids? And if the answer is no, then no, a Christian shouldn't be doing this either. Because, I mean, if it's a Muslim, what if he had Muslim or Hindu students?
Right.
I mean, I'm sure their parents would have been, you know, even more upset, or you know, and of course the parents of the kid who, you know, has these burns on his arms now.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, that's the thing is in the United States, a lot of the time people get this idea that, well, but it's majority rule, and therefore whatever the majority is, and if we're a majority of Protestants, which we no longer are, but that you know, should be the rules. And it's like, no, that's not what it's about. That's what people came here fleeing from when this country was founded. And
there's such a thing as minority rights.
Yeah.
I mean, if it was up to, you know, vote, you know, back in the 50s, whether or not black people could have rights, then...
Yeah, the majority of people would have said, no. I don't want my, you know, maid to be doing something that I don't approve of, or riding in the front of the bus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we don't want them to use our bathrooms.
Yeah, we don't want gay people to be married. It's like, okay, but it's time to
close the program. And it's time to start wrapping things up. Get out your pen and paper. This has been Freethought Forum, a program by the Atheist Society of Knoxville and the Rationalists of East Tennessee.
Please send us feedback. Leave voicemail at 865-272-9060 or email us at freethoughtforum@yahoo.com.
You can see this show on Tuesdays from 5 to 6 p.m. Eastern Time on this Knoxville station and at 2200 Greenwich Mean Time at ctvknox.org.
We'd like to send our thanks to Sam, Jonas, and Forrest for technical support, and to the staff of CTV Knox, and to all of our callers. Remember to examine your beliefs. What is real has nothing to fear.